Title: The Owner They Overlooked. The towering glass structure of the Sterling Crown Hotel stood as a gleaming symbol of success in downtown Chicago. A marvel of modern architecture, it boasted 25 floors of five-star luxury, drawing guests from all over the world. Inside the lobby, polished marble floors sparkled under the grandeur of crystal chandeliers. The air was scented with fresh lilies and orchids flown in daily, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. Everything about the place screamed opulence. Into this atmosphere of prestige stepped Victoria Langston, a composed black woman in a modest yet elegant black suit. Her hair was pulled back into a low chignon, her makeup understated but flawless. She carried no designer bags, wore no flashy jewelry, and her heels were simple but professional. To the untrained eye, she might have seemed like just another business traveler, but the Sterling Crown was hers. Every detail, from the imported marble to the uniforms of the staff, had passed through her hands. She had built the hotel chain from the ground up, enduring years of racial bias, financial hurdles, and boardroom battles. Tonight, Victoria had chosen to visit unannounced, as she often did. She believed true leadership required proximity, an unfiltered look at how her guests were treated when no one knew the CEO was watching. This night was no different. Before she could approach the front desk, however, a man in a tailored navy suit stepped into her path. He had slicked back hair, a smug smile, and an air of authority that spoke of middle management power gone unchecked. His name tag read, Gerald Whitmore, Assistant General Manager. "Ma'am," he said coolly, blocking her with an extended arm. "This property is quite exclusive. We don't typically allow walk-ins, especially this late." Victoria tilted her head. "I see. I'd like to speak with the front desk." "Of course," Gerald replied, not moving. "But I'm afraid we're at full capacity tonight. Perhaps a more affordable establishment might be a better fit." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's interesting. I checked availability online just an hour ago, and there were multiple suites open." He smirked. "Must be an error. Happens sometimes." At that moment, a white couple strolled past Victoria and were greeted warmly by the receptionist. The young woman behind the counter beamed at them, quickly retrieving room keys without hesitation. Victoria watched the contrast in silence. "I'd like to book a suite," she said calmly. The receptionist glanced nervously at Gerald, who folded his arms. "I just told you. We're full," he repeated. Victoria slowly opened her handbag and retrieved her phone. She scrolled deliberately through her inbox, then held the screen out toward them. On it was her company profile, a professional photo of her, beneath which read, Victoria Langston, founder and CEO, Langston Hospitality Group. The receptionist's mouth fell open. Gerald blinked, his smirk vanishing. "You own this place?" he asked incredulously. Victoria's voice remained steady. "Yes, and according to this email from our corporate system, this hotel has 12 suites available. Would you like me to show you the booking dashboard?" A hush fell over the lobby. Other guests had started to notice the exchange. "Ms. Langston," Gerald stammered. "I didn't realize. Please accept my apologies. I meant no offense. You judged me the moment I walked through those doors," Victoria replied, her tone calm but cutting. "Because I didn't fit the image you expected. Instead of offering excellent service, you decided to humiliate someone you thought didn't belong." Sweat beaded on Gerald's forehead. "Please, let me make it up to you. We have our finest penthouse." "No, thank you," she interrupted. She turned to the receptionist. "Your name?" "Elena," the young woman whispered. "You saw what was happening. Why didn't you speak up?" Elena swallowed. "I was afraid to contradict Mr. Whitmore." Victoria studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Fear explains silence, but it doesn't excuse it." She turned back to Gerald. "You're terminated. Effective immediately." His eyes widened in disbelief. "Please, I've worked here for 8 years. And in 8 years, how many guests have you driven away with this attitude? How many moments like this have gone unnoticed? Security will escort you out." The receptionist and other staff watched as hotel security approached. Gerald tried to argue, but it was no use. Within minutes, he was gone. Victoria turned to Elena. "You have a choice now. Learn from this, or remain complicit." "I want to learn," Elena said earnestly. "I don't want to be part of something unjust." Victoria nodded. "Then prove it. From today forward, I expect every guest to receive the same level of excellence, regardless of how they look." Turning to the rest of the staff, who had gathered near the front desk, she addressed them directly. This is a turning point. If you're committed to the values of Langston hospitality, equality, excellence, and integrity, then stay. If not, there's the door. Heads nodded. A quiet energy filled the room, a mix of awe and reflection. Word of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media was abuzz with hashtags, commentary, and praise for Victoria Langston's bold stand. Discussions ignited across the country about racial profiling, assumptions, and corporate leadership. Other hotel chains began examining their own policies. Some issued statements of solidarity. Others made real change. Victoria hadn't just reclaimed her dignity. She had struck a chord. Her actions created ripples far beyond the polished walls of the Sterling Crown. Later that night, Victoria finally stepped into the penthouse suite, not for luxury's sake, but to make a point. She belonged. She always had. And this time, no one would ever forget it. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, Victoria woke up to hundreds of emails and messages. Her assistant, Priya, called immediately. You're trending in over 30 countries. CNN, MSNBC, BBC, they're all covering it. Victoria sat up in bed, the city skyline glowing behind her. Then it's time to speak. Schedule a press conference. This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's been treated as if they didn't belong. By noon, the Sterling Crown's grand ballroom was packed with journalists. Victoria stepped up to the podium with grace and authority. What happened yesterday wasn't unique. It was a reflection of a deep-rooted bias that still exists in our industry and in our society. But it stops here. At Langston Hospitality, we are initiating the Open Doors Initiative. Mandatory diversity and bias training, anonymous guest treatment audits, and a commitment to hiring leadership from underrepresented backgrounds. Applause thundered through the room. Even skeptical media figures were moved. But the backlash came swiftly. A prominent hotel executive, Michael Denton, CEO of a rival chain, mocked her in a leaked internal email, calling her an attention-seeking figurehead. The email went public. Victoria didn't flinch. Instead, she invited Michael to a live televised industry panel to discuss the future of hospitality. On national television, with millions watching, Victoria dismantled his arguments with poise, data, and lived experience. Leadership isn't about image, Michael. It's about action, about knowing your guests, your team, and your purpose. By the end of the panel, public opinion had turned. Denton's chain lost investors. Langston Hospitality's stock soared. Weeks later, Victoria was invited to the White House to advise on inclusive economic development. A portrait of her now hangs in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. But none of that mattered as much as the letter she received from a young black girl in Detroit. Dear Ms. Langston, I saw what you did at your hotel. I want to be like you. I want to build something that nobody can take from me. Thank you for showing me I can. Victoria wept when she read it. And that night, as she walked through the Sterling Crown lobby again, this time in jeans and sneakers, every employee greeted her with warmth and respect, not because they feared her title, but because now they truly understood who she was and who they were supposed to be. The owner they overlooked had become the example they would never forget.